James Harden over 18, I think it's possible. But right now, we're dialing in to UFC here. So Jackson, get us going here with this Miraz versus Wood fight.
Cool. Yeah. So the reason I wanted to talk about this one was because Miraz is obviously so much cheaper than Joanne Wood and is a favorite here in the books. So this is definitely relevant to go into if you're buying stocks on Prediction Strike. And this is just a classic case of a veteran versus someone kind of younger, a little bit fresher. And Joanne Wood, the veteran, she has some nice kicks, good pressure. She's just a pretty good technical striker overall and can mix things up, just applies pressure well. And she has decent grappling and takedown defense. She's good at dictating the pace. She is getting older, though, probably past her prime. Um, but she still has a striking differential of 7-5. And she's coming off a decision win over Luana Carolina, which had she lost that, she would be on a 4-fight skid right now. That was her first win in 4 fights. And she's going up against the much younger Moroz, who also mixes up her technique super well, stays outside the pocket nicely, and wins by managing that range. And she does get kind of hittable inside the pocket. She has a negative striking differential, which is kind of just a trait that she struggles with relative to Joanne Wood. But she does have the ability to work in takedowns a little bit better, I would say, than Joanne is able to. And she is coming off a sub loss to Karine Silva, where she was knocked down really early in the fight. And this is a rematch of a 2015 fight where Moreau's already won that. And Joanne is getting up there in age at this point. She's not really dangerous at all. There's not any KO potential here on her side. But she's obviously technically sound, high fight IQ. She's a long term veteran in the UFC. Um, and pretty much outside her loss to Marina, she's only lost to ranked opponents. And she's past her prime. That's mainly my thing here. She also lost to Moroz the first time. Moroz has a similar fight style. She's just younger, fresher, more athletic, probably better at managing the range and working in those takedowns as well. And I think it's impossible to miss her just because of the value on Prediction Strike here.
Right on. All right. Well, moving on to the next one here, we got Despain, I believe is who you want to talk to, going against Parisian. Or
Yeah.
however you say their names. All right, perfect.
Yep, Josh Parisian versus Robelis to Spain. So the value here isn't on Robelis. I think this is just a fight worth talking about because it's going to be one of the most fun ones to watch on the card. We have this guy, Robelis to Spain, who we know for a fact is going to come into this fight with a huge athletic advantage over Josh Parisian. He's 6'7", 265 pounds, and an Olympic Taekwondo medalist. He's an absolute freak of nature. If you watch his fights, you would have seen that his last two both ended in under 5 seconds by way of KO. And the way he moves for someone so big is just insane. And he has only really been fighting regional guys. He's been putting them to sleep really, really fast, but it is going to be interesting to see how he fights against a tried and true UFC guy like Josh Parisian, who has beat some real names in the UFC and is pretty big himself. He's 6'5", so he's not just going to get trashed like these other guys that Robelis has been fighting, these regional kind of Bellator guys. So I think it should be a really fun fight. I think it's probably either going to go like Robelis by KO or Parisian by points. We've seen Parisian fight a full 15. We haven't seen that from Robelis, and we know Parisian has the tank for that. I do think Robelis takes this one, though. I think his athleticism and his martial arts expertise get him there ultimately.
True. What's up, Long Term W, and how are you doing, Blaine? Welcome into the stream. We're just doing a little UFC 299 preview before we dive into NBA. But yeah, big on Robelis. Yeah. Trying to figure out who's the next one you want to talk. I'm not good with these names. I'm not even gonna
Let's
try.
do let's do Lins versus Kuzalaba just because
Okay,
there's value.
that's what I figured you wanted to talk about, but I wasn't entirely sure.
Yeah.
So we'll show the stab here, and then I'll get Kutaleba brought up, and then you're gonna want Munoz and Kyler Phillips, right?
Um. Yeah, I'm down for that.
Word. All right. So walk us through Kutaleba here.
Okay, so this fight was the value lies in Kutalaba here. He's like a little over $1.50 cheaper than Linz, so he is the value on prediction strike. And this fight was supposed to happen a few months ago, was canceled because Linz was sick, and Linz is a former heavyweight with very real power. It seems like he's carried that power with him to light heavyweight. And he is definitely a pressure fighter. He'll walk you down, likes to trade punches. Um, and he just went up against Grisham, where he had power, but went all in on the wrestling, didn't have the best takedown attempts at all. Kind of some low fight IQ moments there from him. And Jan is a grappler, happens to have a good amount of power in his hands as well. And he has a pretty questionable chin himself, chases stoppages a lot of times to a fault, but he's really good on the ground, gets a bunch of takedowns. And Kutalaba pretty much always gets finished in his losses. But the key here is normally to fighters who are really, really good strikers or BJJ experts. And he's coming off that win over Tanner Bozer. Like how I see it is he does get finished a lot, but he's extremely dangerous at the same time. Felipe Lins is chinny himself, and Lins would by a relatively large stretch be the worst opponent that Kutalaba has ever lost to. And there's always against Kutalaba, most fighters have a chance because he's leaves himself open so much, has some low fight IQ moments. But he's super dangerous. I like him here, but it is going to be a super sloppy fight, I think. A lot of potential for flash KOs.
Right on. And now moving on to Sir Munoz. Sorry, mouse isn't. There we go. Oh, I thought I had Munoz put up, but I was wrong. Pedro Munoz. Bam. Walk it down. Walk it down.
Pedro is the more expensive fighter here, so you're getting the deal if you're on the Kyler side of things. And Pedro is a high volume striker, nonstop pace, shoots leg kicks, pretty dangerous with his jiu-jitsu as well. He doesn't shoot a lot of takedowns though, and has a negative striking differential, very high volume though, kind of makes up for it. And Cheeto beat him at 292. Kyler is a good striker, diverse in his technique, well-rounded generally, very light on his feet. And most of Kyler's fights, he does a really good job of mixing it up, but he's also willing to just stand and bang. He's a good striker and has plenty of cardio and is good at using it as a weapon against his opponents. And he's coming off that win over Rani Barcelos, where he just looked better pretty much the whole fight. And I think this one's a tough one for me. I think I'm on the Pedro Munoz side of things. I think the experience and grit is going to get him there. And I do think he is just generally the better fighter between the two. But he is old. And it's there's a bunch of fights on this card where it's sort of like the passing of the guard, where it's an old fighter that's really good versus young fighter. Like we got Jan going up against Song Yadong, stuff like that. Gilbert Burns fight. So I personally am thinking Pedro Munoz here. I think this is one of the vets that's going to take it. He does only have one win in his last five. But yeah, I think I like Pedro here.
Pedro.
Yeah, I like Munoz as well. I mean, it was a unanimous decision, I think, against Cheeto, but I mean, we've seen a lot of people get flatlined by Cheeto in the past, and the fact that he's able to hang in there and bang for 3 rounds is something that I mean, you need to give him credit for, despite the fact that I mean, some thought it was a dominant win for Cheeto, but I mean, he still hung in there. He's able to hang in with the best in this division, so I mean, I think he can kind of fraud check a younger fighter here for sure.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, I know Jackson was excited about the next fight here of Almeida versus Blades. So walk us through this one, Jackson.
Do we have Gamrot first or no? Or do
you guys want to go to Gamrot?
You want to talk about Gamrot versus Dos Anjos?
All right, we'll do.
I mean, I don't know how much we need to talk about it. I think Gamrot's pretty much a lock here.
Yeah, I think
this would be my highest confidence pick of the week if we were still doing this survivor pool or anything. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in Gamrot's ability to get this one done.
Yeah, I think this one could easily be considered a lock on this card. I think he should be able to shoot a ton of takedowns here with relative ease, get the win. I honestly feel like Dos Anjos will be on his back for most of the fight here.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough.
Cool.
Now back to Almeida versus Blades. Walk us through this one where there's actual competition.
On prediction strike, it's pretty much a pick 'em here, only 20-ish cents apart at high prices. So relatively similar to how the books are viewing this fight, which I think presents a lot of value on the Almeida side of things. And this fight was supposed to be a headliner. Now it's a featured prelim. We're getting blessed. And the odds are just kind of wild to me because I like Jalton in this one so much. And this Jalton was a massive favorite for this when he was supposed to fight for the headline. And then like everyone thought Almeida was going to finish Derek Lewis. He pieced him up. He didn't knock him out though, but I think it kind of changed people's perspective about Almeida for whatever reason, even though he completely worked Derek Lewis.
Yeah. But somewhat fair criticism.
Yeah. But now the odds have completely flipped. Like before, Almeida was a 2-1 favorite in this fight. Now Blades is coming in as the dog in the fight. Or sorry, Almeida's coming in as the dog in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say Blades is a fantastic wrestler, super clean entries, and Curtis, like that's the thing with him though. He doesn't do it anymore. And I think, if he still had the wrestling in his bag, he would have a real chance here against Almeida, but he hasn't attempted a takedown in a couple of years now. But he has really good hands. High volume striker for such a big guy. He, I think, more than doubled Chris Dawkins' strikes in their fight. And I know Pavlovich K'd him in his last fight, and he didn't shoot any takedowns there, which probably would have helped him out a lot. And I think it's just apparent that part of his game is completely gone at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll probably be his undoing here. Almeida has looked like an absolute savage in the UFC. Great hands himself, great grappling, nonstop pressure too, and has only been to one decision in the UFC. So I don't really mind that he didn't finish Lewis. I love the value on him here pretty much wherever you're getting him. I think I'm pretty confident in Almeida.
Yeah, I like Almeida as well. I think that in this division, though, it's been proven that everybody kind of has a puncher's chance. And so if there was some value on PS, I would be pretty confident taking either one with the value. But since it's pretty even there, I think you kind of have to lean Almeida a little bit. I think the narrative on Blade's career right now would be a little different if Tom Aspinall didn't break his leg or tear his ACL or whatever happened in the first 15 seconds of that fight. I think Aspinall would probably cruise to a victory in that one, and then Blades would be coming off the 2 losses, and you're definitely looking at a different scenario. So given that, I think Almeida is definitely the value play here.
Yeah.
All right. Now moving on to our next bout, we got Song Yadong versus Peter Yan. What do we got going on here? Another kind of pick'em situation.
Yeah, pretty much a pick'em here. And Yan, we know how good he is, but he is at this point an aging veteran on he's won 1 in his last 5. And he is the former bantamweight champion, really good striker, great takedown defense and offense, applies the pressure with his Muay Thai style guard, and has a ton of power, very accurate, averages more than 2 takedowns a fight, very complete fighter, Peter Yan is. And he just lost to Merab, where the takedown defense looked shoddy. I mean, it looked a little bit less shoddy when you consider that Merab shot like 50 takedowns against him in that fight. Yeah, he got taken down
UFC record
times, but he defended 38 takedowns or something, which is insane. But Song, his opponent, technical striker, good movement, super hard punches. And he does absorb a lot of strikes, open for takedowns sometimes because he throws with so much power. And he's good at dictating the pace, but like I said there, he will let his hands go sometimes, which will throw him off. And he is coming off a decision win over Chris Gutierrez, where he looked better in both the striking exchanges and the wrestling. Um, and this, we're either going to be reminded how good Jan is here, or we're going to see a new face kind of rise up in contention for a belt. And I don't know. Song gets hit a ton, and Peter is so powerful. Song doesn't fight very well backing up. And his record's kind of hollow. He doesn't really have any ranked wins besides Cheeto, like half a decade ago. So honestly, I'm gonna go with Jan here. I'm kind of nervous to pick a side on this one just because I can see it going either way. I don't know if I'm gonna put my money anywhere on this fight, but I think I'll go with Jan.
Yeah, I'm going to take Jan as well. I think this is a good bounce back spot. I don't really like the matchup for Song here. I think that Jan has struggled particularly against the kind of pesky grapplers like we've seen with Aljamain Sterling, and then obviously in that last fight against Merab, where it was just constant takedowns and constant pressure and stuff. And against a guy where he knows most of the fight is going to be fought standing with strikes and stuff, I think that bodes well for Jan. He's experienced. He's still only 31. Obviously, a bit of a downtrend here, but still plenty of time left in his career and plenty of fights left, assuming he can figure it out and get back in the win column, which I do see him getting back there this weekend. So we'll see.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I'll be taking Song Yadong for the memes. But in the meantime, we got Burns versus Della Maddalena. Walk me through this one. How's it going?
So the values with JDM are, I think this is probably one of the highest value plays on Prediction Strike of the whole card here. And Gilbert Burns is primarily grappler. He has gotten better and better striking throughout his career, though. Is very powerful. He is really tough, really fast, sort of undersized, but JDM on the other side of things, high power striker, really nasty jabs. His takedown defense is solid at 82%, coming off a very close win over Kevin Holland. Well, I will say close, not extremely close, but I'm going with JDM. Burns is maybe the more well-rounded fighter, but he doesn't have insane wins in his career. He's pretty one-dimensional, and JDM is absolutely a different animal. And, I think he's going to give Gilbert Burns a lot of trouble in the striking department, especially if he had trouble with Bilal. And, when Burns fought Khamzat, he made it a tough fight because Khamzat didn't wrestle. And I think JDM is going to be able to expose him on the feet here. Burns is obviously going to work really hard. He's a great fighter still at 37. But I think JDM is going to be able to piece him up, and I'm going to go for the value on Prediction Strike.
Right on.
So, yeah, straight value. I think you have to lean JDM on this one on PS. In terms of just in general, who's going to win the fight, it's tough. I could totally see it going either way. Depends which Gilbert Burns we get. I think that, the decision could have easily gone his way in the Khamzat fight, and we'd be seeing an entirely different landscape in the division and just in general. If he's locked in, I think he can still compete with the best of them. But we saw in that Bilal fight that he just didn't really look like the old Gilbert Burns, and it was kind of a dominant display for Bilal that shot him up the rankings there. So, I could genuinely see it going either way, but just straight up value, you have to lean with the younger 27-year-old who could easily win this fight and is way undervalued on PS at this current moment. So,
right on. All right, now to our partner, Kevin Holland versus Michael Page. How do we see this one going? Let me know.
This is going to be such a fun fight. I feel like this is going to be one of the more exciting Kevin Holland fights we've seen in a minute. And I like this matchmaking. We know Kevin Holland, very accurate striker, good power too. Takedown defense has been getting better and better, which has always been a hole in his fighting. And he has good jujitsu, just an absolute sniper on his feet. I would say his striking accuracy is probably his best trait. Good grappling as well. And he's coming off that close loss to JDM. Went 0 for 2 with takedowns in that, but he did land more strikes than Dylan Madalena in that fight. And he is taking on MVP Michael Venom Page, who is an absolutely savage striker that has been very successful in Bellator. And he has a karate background, and he, it's works really well for him. He's super powerful, accurate striking as well. And he doesn't shoot takedowns whatsoever, but has decent takedown defense. So Kevin Holland will have the advantage in the ground game there. MVP is probably past his prime a bit. He's 36, which is pretty old for a guy getting his first UFC contract. But he's still a great signing, I think. Like, obviously, the UFC, if they're signing him that old, they're probably going to push him to some ranked opponents early if he gets a win here against Holland. But this is a huge step up in competition for him. I think both of these fighters will do a good job of keeping each other guessing. They're both kind of known for being able to do that. And I honestly am going to take Kevin here. He is our guy. I think he's the more complete fighter of the two. Obviously, the more experienced fighter of the two when it comes to UFC. But it's obviously going to be a tough match for him. It'll be 100% the toughest fight of MVP's career. And Holland is super durable. So I think I'm going to go with our boy here. Yeah.
From a pure striking standpoint, this is one of the more fun matchups you could create in the entire UFC. Definitely the fight that I'm most looking forward to this weekend. It's kind of tough to gauge the competition level in Bellator compared to what Kevin Holland's been up against during his UFC career. I know the FPL just did a card with Bellator where their champs fought, or at least they're planning that. I would love to see something like that in the UFC. I think the UFC would probably win a lot of them, but it would be interesting to see maybe a top contender in the UFC fight the Bellator champ, and I think that could draw some eyes. I'd be very curious in kind of seeing what the skill level gap is between the two companies. In this one, though, I'm definitely going to lean Holland as well. I mean, I think this fight will probably end in the distance. I think someone will probably get a finish here, and we'll see an electric fight. Definitely one that I'm looking forward to, and I think Holland gets it done just because he's more prepared for the moment, and he's fought fighters better than Venom Page before, and I don't know if I could say the same about Michael Page. So for that reason, I will take the more experienced guy in the moment and take Kevin Holland.
I also saw a video of MVP I didn't like recently, like talking about the fight where he was like, "Oh, me and Kevin Holland need to have a podcast while we're in the ring." And it's like, bro, you don't sound like Kevin Holland is obviously a big mouth, but he's like not out here saying that. Like, he's ready for this fight, man. You got to shut up and not get your ass knocked out.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next one. We've got Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Excited to finally see Benoit Saint-Denis getting the respect he deserves. So let me know what you guys think about this one.
Another acronym guy, BSD, presents a lot of value here against Poirier, who's a few dollars more expensive. And Dustin, we know he's a great boxer with super high fight IQ, great BJJ. He kind of like popularized the calf kick in modern MMA, I would say. Just pretty much a legend. He'll work in a takedown or two, but is not accurate in doing so. Mostly a striker. And Gagey, we know, won the BMF belt over him. His opponent in this fight, Benoit Saint-Denis, is a really strong wrestler and will be shooting takedowns at Poirier's legs the whole fight. He has 6 fights in the UFC with an insane amount of takedowns, and has only been to the 3rd round one time. He has a ton of power on his feet too, which he uses to mix things up and ultimately bring you to the ground. And he's coming off a 90-second KO over the steamroller Matt Favola.
The steamroll.
Yeah, rip to the steamroller, dude. It's a good guy. But I think this is one of the ones where the younger guy could probably come in and win it. Um, hopefully, it'd be great to see Dustin's chin hold up perfectly after the loss for that belt against Gagey, but it's not something that we can 100% trust. Like, who knows? Maybe Dustin's just so accomplished, so good that it's a bad idea to fade him. And this is a 5-round fight, too. We've seen him in some insane wars. I think BSD is going to take it here. I think his power is going to be a real problem for Dustin. This is one I'm kind of shaky over still, though. I will take BSD for the apparent value on PS.
Yeah, value on PS, it seems pretty clear to take the BSD side. Obviously, probably a long career ahead, too. So this fight, not the be-all, end-all in terms of that stock's future. I do lean slightly. I think Poirier gets this one done. It just feels like too big of a step up for Saint Denis. I mean, going from barely fighting a ranked fighter to now taking on a guy who's been a mainstay in the division and in the company for years upon years. Fought the biggest names you can think of. He's fought Khabib. He's been in the ring with a younger McGregor. Beat Michael Chandler recently. He's fought Charles Oliveira. He's fought all the guys you can think of in this division. Been a mainstay. I think he's more ready for the moment. I think that he's prepared to go to war in the ring, and Saint Denis, as a French military man, probably also prepared for a war of some sort. But yeah, I just think the step up might be a little too early, and I would have liked to see Saint Denis get a few more ranked fights in before taking this step. But I mean, I'm happy to see it. I think it'll be a great fight. And at 28 and new to the UFC relatively, the stock is still worth picking up, in my opinion, long term. Maybe buy a dip if this doesn't go well. But I like Poirier's ability to stand in there and be versatile.
Right on.
I like it.
All right, now on to the main event itself. Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. Let me know how you guys are going about this, where you stand, etc.
So the prediction strike value is with Cheeto. It's nothing crazy because they're both expensive stocks and it's only $1.50 difference. But Sean, obviously the current bantamweight champion, he's very, very good. Great striker with real power, super accurate. And he kind of just does whatever he wants on his feet, has a bunch of spinning techniques and kicks. He's a good counter striker as well, has long reach, which helps him manage range. He does get exposed by leg kicks from time to time. We saw that in his fight against Pedro Munoz. We saw that against Cheeto.
Yeah, how did you remember that fight? How did you see it going before the leg break happened? Obviously, it was due to Cheeto's ability to get home with the leg kick, so you can't really count it as a non-loss like Sean O'Malley clearly does. I don't think pretty even. It seemed like it could have gone either way. I don't think O'Malley was out of it by any stretch. It just one bad moment with the leg.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, if I'm trying to glean off of that fight alone, it would probably push me towards Cheeto just because we saw that happen to him, and we also know now that Cheeto's the more durable fighter of the two. So it's if that fight had gone on longer, the odds of Sean maybe being, the fresher fighter into the later rounds is probably less likely. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that necessarily tells the whole story. I like Sean here. He's obviously the type of guy that can catch him pretty much whenever. Vera, he is a Muay Thai striker, uses pretty much all the tools that he has to get the win, and doesn't wrestle at all, but he is definitely a submission threat when he's on the ground. And he has so much power, such an insane chin that he never gasses out. It's something we don't have to worry about with Cheeto. Coming off a win over Pedro Munoz, he won the striking exchanges there. And I think this is going to be a great fight. Sean is the cleaner, more accurate striker of the two, while Cheeto is the more durable striker of the two. better chin. And Sean, I'm kind of worried about. Like, I want Sean to win this. I watched him get the belt at 292. I'm a big fan. Um, and I honestly think Sean can get it. Like, if as long as Sean is managing the range well enough, here's what I'll say. As long as like the fighters are sitting back outside of the pocket, waiting for the right moment to strike, then I think this is a good fight for Sean. If there are too many inside of the pocket exchanges, I think he could definitely be in trouble against a guy like Cheeto. We've seen four main event underdog winners this year in pay-per-view events. I don't know. It's so hard. I think Cheeto, honestly, I'm leaning Cheeto right now. It's just he's so impossible to beat. And it's like Cheeto's been beat in the past with high activity, tons of pressure, takedowns. Sean isn't really that guy. He's going to strike, or at least want to strike, with Cheeto this whole time. And plenty of people have, outstruck Vera during a fight, and because of his insane chin, he was able to come out on top at the end after that. I'm going to go with Cheeto here. I'm going to go with another underdog win in the UFC main card.
We've seen Sean be able to adapt to these kind of fighters. Like, I think his last fight, Aljo was a big favorite, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of people thought that fight was going to end up on the ground almost instantly, and we saw it get quick to exchanges. Aljo's game plan was a little funky in that it seemed like he wanted to prove that he could strike a little bit, and we saw Sean kind of in the clinch in close quarters get some positive exchanges and put Aljo on the ground, and then kind of be able to finish it from there. Take this how you want, but I think O'Malley has kind of matured a good amount since that fight against Cheeto. He's still a talker, but he's less kind of loudmouth and more lets his fighting back it up. You don't see him like yapping and kind of calling out crazy names as much as he once did. He's kind of grown into the champion role and is kind of confident in his striking, which I think is a dangerous place for anyone fighting him. He's not as loud and brash, and I think he's more like calm and collected and still confident in his ability to strike. You don't really have to worry about the takedown potential as much as you did in Sean's last fight, and he was still able to get through this one. I don't know. It's tough. I think either of these guys probably is in a tough spot against Merab in a few months after this fight anyway, and I think Sean probably sees that this is his best opportunity to continue his reign in the division for a little longer, and it might get tough after this, so I think he holds on and he gets his first title defense here.
Totally. And like for me, this is just one of those fights on this card. There's so many fights on the card, like you don't have to bet on every one. And I think the Sean Cheeto one is one I'm just gonna like sit back and enjoy, and like
100%.
Not sweat a winner of.
100%. And I mean, most, if not all of these fights, both people have a puncher's chance, if not more than that. So I mean, we've seen many fights that are almost even, like pick'em odds, and then we've seen, I think the biggest favorite is Gamrot, who's basically 3-1, but nothing anywhere close to like Umar Nurmagomedov's odds last week or anything like that. So all pretty close. A lot of picks, a lot of luck will have to go your way to kind of steer your way through this card without taking a couple losses. So some just take it off and watch this one be the fight that I think it totally could be, and a great one.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, well, that's all we have for UFC 299. We're now going to shut this off and pop into some NBA. You heard Jackson and Grant cook. Hopefully, they continue to help your portfolios continue to grow.
Is there